All right, so today we're diving into something pretty big. It's game-changing, I'd say, especially for anyone who's ever just felt overwhelmed,
Yeah,
by just the huge amount of information out there.
it is. It is a lot.
Yeah, and imagine if research wasn't such a huge task, like if it
I'm
was easy,
effortless.
effortless
But
even.
we're powered by AI.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're looking at today, this tool called GPT Researcher.
Mhm.
And from what I've been reading about it, it could completely change how we think about research.
Okay, so GPT Researcher, what is it?
Well, it's an open source AI research agent, but it does so much more than a search engine.
Hmm.
Okay, so imagine you have a research question. Like, how about what's the impact of blockchain technology on the supply chain industry?
Okay, yeah, that's a good one.
So you ask GPT Researcher that question, but it doesn't just give you a bunch of links like Google does.
Right.
It goes deeper, like way deeper. It analyzes information from the web. Oh, and get this, it can even look at your own files too.
Wait a minute. Did I hear that right? It can use MY files?
Yeah, you got it. Wow. So like if I'm working on something and I have tons of PDFs,
Mm.
GPT Researcher can just go through all of them and like summarize everything.
Exactly. It's like having your own superpowered research assistant. And the best part, it never complains about boring reports.
Okay, I'm definitely interested. But how does this thing actually work? Does it just do its own thing once I give it a question?
Not exactly. It's more like a multi-step process. So you start with a query, like that blockchain one you just mentioned.
Okay.
Then GPT Researcher takes that query and uses AI to break it down into smaller research questions.
So for the blockchain example,
It might come up with questions like, what are the biggest problems in supply chains right now? How could blockchain help fix those problems? What are the good and bad things about using blockchain in supply chains?
so it's not just looking for keywords, it's actually thinking about the topic, coming up with a strategy.
Exactly.
That's cool. What happens next?
Well, then it dives into all that information out there, looks at stuff on the web, and even your own files. But here's the big difference between GPT Researcher and a regular search engine. It doesn't just copy and paste what it finds. It actually reads and understands the content,
Wow.
pulls out the important parts, summarizes them, and even combines info from different sources to create a story.
So it's like an AI that can really understand what it's reading, not just repeating it.
Exactly. And it gets even better. GPT Researcher is designed to work around those token limits.
Token limits?
Yeah, those are limits on how much text an AI can handle at once.
Ah, okay.
The GPT Researcher can work with a lot more text than other AI tools, so it can make much longer and more detailed reports.
So we're talking about getting insights that even a human researcher might not be able to get in a reasonable amount of time.
Exactly.
Wow, this is sounding really impressive. But who is this for? Is it only for academics or tech people?
No, not at all. One of the best things about GPT Researcher is how flexible it is. You can use it for so many different things in just about any industry.
Like what?
We're talking marketing, finance,
Yeah.
HR, travel planning, you name it.
Really? Travel planning. So this thing could help me plan a vacation.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm listening.
Let's say you're planning a trip, like backpacking through Southeast Asia for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Instead of spending hours looking at travel blogs and stuff.
Which I definitely do.
You could just tell GPT Researcher what you want, budget-friendly places to stay, unique destinations, local foods to try, anything, and it would gather all that info for you, make a personalized itinerary, and even suggest places you might never find on your own.
I like the sound of that. But what about those other industries you mentioned? How could professionals use this to their advantage?
Well, take marketing, for example. Say you're launching a new product, and you want to see what your competitors are doing instead of spending days going through websites and reports. You could have GPT Researcher do it for you. It could give you a complete overview of your competitors, their strengths, weaknesses, marketing strategies, even what customers are saying about them online.
So no more late nights trying to figure out the competition.
Exactly.
What about finance?
In finance, it could be really helpful for things like stock analysis, making company profiles, or even finding new investment opportunities.
I see.
Like, let's say you're looking at a particular company's stock. You could ask GPT Researcher to make a report. But it wouldn't just be the basic financial stuff. It would include news articles, analyst opinions, even what people are saying on social media.
Wow. So you'd get a much better understanding of the company.
Exactly.
It's amazing how much time this could save.
Right.
But all this sounds pretty technical.
Yeah.
Is it easy to use? Or is it just for people who know how to code?
Not at all. They've made it pretty user-friendly. There are a few different ways to set it up. depending on your comfort level.
Okay,
If
yeah.
you're comfortable with code, you can install it yourself.
Uh-huh.
But if you prefer an easier way, there are these things called Docker images.
Docker images. What are those?
Well, think of it like a prepackaged box. It has everything you need to run GPT Researcher. You don't have to worry about installing separate parts or
So
anything.
it's like a meal kit for software. Yeah. That makes sense. So even if I'm not a coding expert,
Mhm.
I can still use this.
Yeah.
But what about customization? Can I make it work the way I want it to?
Absolutely. That's one of the things that makes it so powerful. You can choose which large language model you want to use, like OpenAI or Anthropic. You can pick your favorite search engines and even decide whether you wanted to focus on web searches or your own files.
That's like creating your own research machine.
Exactly.
This all sounds amazing. But let's be real. Can we really trust an AI to give us accurate research? What about bias?
That's a good question, and it's something the developers have thought about carefully. One of the ways GPT Researcher tries to be accurate is by using information from many different sources, so it's less likely to be influenced by one biased source.
That makes sense. But couldn't there still be bias? Even with multiple sources, I mean, the internet is full of misinformation.
You're right. No research tool can be completely free of bias, but GPT Researcher tries to minimize it by using a wide range of sources and not just picking data that supports one view.
So it's more about using it as a tool to help us think critically,
Right.
not just blindly accepting everything it says.
Exactly.
Okay, so it sounds like GPT Researcher could really change things.
Yeah.
Not just for researchers, but for anyone who needs to understand all the information out there.
Definitely.
And this is still a developing field.
Yeah. What we're seeing now is just the beginning.
This is all really interesting, and I'm already thinking about how I could use it myself. But we've covered a lot already. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll look at some specific examples of how people are using GPT Researcher today in all kinds of different industries.
Sounds good. Actually, while we were talking about GPT Researcher, it made me think about some of my old projects and how much easier they would have been if I'd had this tool.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Just a few months ago, I was working with a client in healthcare, and we had to analyze all this research on personalized medicine. There was so much information. Clinical trials, research papers, genomic data. It was crazy.
I bet. Healthcare is just exploding with new research all the time.
Yeah. Right. It felt like trying to drink from a fire hose.
I can imagine.
We spent weeks just reading through all these complicated articles, trying to find the important trends and insights.
So GPT Researcher could have helped with that.
Oh, absolutely. If we'd had it back then, we could have saved so much time and energy.
In what way?
Well, we could have given it all those research papers and clinical trial data, and it would have pulled out the main points for us, highlighted the most promising approaches, identified potential challenges,
Yeah.
maybe even suggested new areas to investigate.
It would have organized everything for you, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No more digging through files, trying to find that one statistic or study.
And think about the collaboration aspect.
Right.
You could have shared your research query with colleagues anywhere,
Right.
and they could have instantly seen the same curated information.
And added their own insights.
It'd be like a truly collaborative research environment.
Exactly.
Everyone working from the same up-to-date knowledge base.
That's the dream.
It really is.
Mhm.
And GPT Researcher seems like a big step toward that. Breaking down barriers between
Disciplines,
Yeah.
creating a more open and collaborative research ecosystem.
That's pretty exciting. But let's talk about some real-world examples.
Okay.
You mentioned marketing, finance, travel planning.
Yeah.
Can you give us some concrete examples?
Of how GPT Researcher could be used in those fields? Of course. Let's start with marketing. Imagine you're a marketing manager for a company that sells eco-friendly cleaning products.
Okay.
You're about to launch a new laundry detergent, and you want to make sure your marketing message is effective.
Right.
You could use GPT Researcher to analyze consumer trends, see what your competitors are doing, even look at conversations on social media.
They had a better sense of what people want.
Exactly.
So instead of just guessing.
No.
Or using traditional market research methods,
Right.
you could get a much more accurate picture.
With GPT Researcher.
I see.
And you could also use it to track how your campaigns are doing in real time
Oh.
by looking at social media engagement, website traffic, sales data.
So you'd know what's working and what's not.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's like a constant feedback loop,
It is.
allowing you to adjust your strategy as you go.
Exactly.
What about finance?
Okay, so let's say you're a financial analyst working for an investment firm,
Okay.
and you're looking at a potential investment. In a company that develops renewable energy technologies,
Right.
you could use GPT Researcher to create a report on that company, analyzing its financial performance, its management team, the competition, even its social and environmental impact.
Wow, so you'd get a much deeper understanding of the company,
Yes.
beyond just the numbers.
Right.
And it could help you spot potential risks, too.
Absolutely.
Like what?
Well, it could analyze news articles and social media posts to see what the public thinks about the company, or it could look at regulatory filings for any signs of legal or environmental problems.
It's like having a whole team of investigators working for you.
Pretty much.
And it could all be done so much faster.
Yeah. That's a huge advantage.
But with all this talk about AI and automation, are there any downsides? Like, could we become too reliant on these tools and lose our own ability to think critically?
That's a great question. And it's something we should definitely think about. I think the key is to use GPT Researcher responsibly. It's a tool, not a replacement for human judgment.
So we shouldn't just blindly follow its recommendations.
Right.
We still need to think for ourselves.
Exactly.
It's about finding the right balance.
Between using AI and maintaining our own critical thinking skills.
It's kind of like using a GPS.
How so?
Well, a GPS can be really helpful for getting somewhere,
Yeah,
but you still need to know how to read a map and make your own decisions about the best route.
that's a good analogy. And it reminds us that even the smartest AI systems can make mistakes.
Right.
So we need to be careful and always double-check the information. Consider the sources and be aware of potential biases.
So it's not about replacing humans with robots. It's about working together.
To get better results.
I like that.
That's what makes this field so exciting.
It really does.
We're at the beginning of a new era of research, where AI plays a crucial role.
In helping us learn new things
Solve complex problems.
and make smarter decisions.
Exactly.
And as these tools get better,
They have the potential to be even more powerful.
absolutely.
We're just getting started.
This has been a really insightful conversation,
It has.
but we're running out of time for this segment. Before we move on, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the future of GPT Researcher. What do you think is next for this tool? I'm really interested in something you mentioned earlier about multi-agent research assistants. Like, are we moving past just using one AI and into a world where teams of AIs work together to tackle bigger research questions?
It's definitely a hot area right now. Imagine researching something that covers lots of different fields, like how climate change is impacting global food security.
Okay, yeah, that's complex.
You could have a team of AI agents, each one specializing in a different area, one for climate modeling, another for agricultural economics, and maybe one for geopolitics.
So instead of me trying to become an expert in everything, I could have a team of AI experts working for me, each one with its own unique perspective.
And they wouldn't just work on their own. They'd talk to each other, share data, even debate different ideas.
Just like a real research team.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
could check each other's findings, point out any inconsistencies, even come up with new hypotheses.
That's pretty amazing. It's like having a whole think tank at my fingertips.
And because they're AI, they can process information way faster than humans. They can go through tons of data, find hidden patterns, and make connections we might miss.
It's almost like having a superpower. But with all this power, we need to think about the ethical side of things, too.
Oh, absolutely.
How do we make sure these AI agents are used responsibly
Yeah.
and that they don't just reinforce existing biases?
That's a really important point. We have to remember that AIs are trained on data created by humans, and that data can contain biases. So even if we're trying to be objective, those biases can show up in the AI's analysis and recommendations.
So it's not enough to just build powerful AI tools. We need to have safeguards in place to make sure they're used for good.
Exactly. Transparency is key. We need to understand how these AIs are making decisions
So we can spot any biases.
and have ways to correct them.
It feels like we're entering a whole new world,
We are.
and it's going to require a lot of careful thought,
And collaboration.
not just from computer scientists and AI experts,
But from ethicists,
lawyers.
social scientists.
Everyone needs to be involved.
It's a challenge for sure, but it's also super exciting.
It is.
The potential benefits of AI are huge.
But we have to be responsible.
And use these technologies ethically.
I agree. This has been a really fascinating conversation.
Yeah, it has.
I'm feeling inspired, but also a little overwhelmed by everything we've talked about. Any advice for our listeners who want to learn more about AI-powered research?
I'd say the most important thing is to be curious and stay informed. There are tons of resources online.
Like what?
Research papers, articles, online courses, even communities dedicated to AI and machine learning.
And don't be afraid to experiment.
Oh, yeah.
There are lots of open source AI tools out there. You can try them out for yourself.
The best way to learn is by doing.
True.
And remember, this field is changing all the time.
So be ready to adapt.
And be open to new ideas.
Well said. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our deep dive into GPT Researcher and the future of AI-powered research.
It's been a great discussion.
It has. I'm feeling really inspired by the possibilities.
It's definitely a transformative time.
And as we move forward,
It's so important to approach AI development responsibly
with ethics in mind,
and a commitment to using these tools to make the world a better place.
I couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining me on this journey. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
See you next time.